And then people ask questions, don't they, about, and I've talked about it, a couple of 100 million I think it will take. And people ask those questions like Nicky there. Do you think FSG will ever invest again? Well, they've seen how this has gone. Fair question. We talk about January, don't we, as fans? I mean, how much is in the proverbial piggy bank? We need a defender, don't we, at least? Some progressive defender. And you didn't buy Mark Gay for the 35 million. So there should be at least that there in the piggy bank. And Drunk Vigo there saying, why would you give more dollars to Slot to spend? Well, it's Richard Hughes, isn't it, that's ultimately responsible for that. We know how that works at the same time. So maybe the question mark should be around some suits rather than the head coach, although we know he's part of that recruitment process at the same time. There's honestly so much to ponder, but a lot of fans, a lot of journalists saying things that are hard to argue at the moment. In terms of maybe my favourite journalist, we all know Indy Callier. We all know the GOAT. We all know how he's been ahead of the curve and had some brilliant exclusives this summer and all the way through. This is a bit of a naughty boy, Indy. He knows exactly what he's doing. If you did not know what I'm talking about, that tweet where he says, Liverpool are concerned and Jurgen Klopp would say yes to a sensational return if it came up. It's not going to. It's just, everyone knows what Indy's doing there and why he's doing it. I get it. The game is the game. So you can't be too mad about the GOAT at all saying that. But all because of Stephen, whatever his name is, interview and, saying in the right set, it's never going to happen. Jurgen Klopp is not coming back to Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp is not going to taint his legacy. It's not right for Liverpool to bring Jurgen Klopp in, is it? Because of what he said and, where he is in his life and his career. It's a non-starter. It's not relevant. It's a pipe dream, if it is that for you. And I get it. And people are saying, like, who just think, who could we be looking at? It's funny, isn't it? The split in the fan base. People saying, well, and we need to look at other managers. And Iraola's getting mentioned in the chat panel, Xavi. But then others, and I kind of get this going, well, whoever it is can't make these players taller, better in the air, get them winning their duels. It's tough, isn't it, at the moment? One thing that does seem to be agreed across the board, and this is an area of the team that's got major concerns, and I'm glad if you were commenting on this. Look at, if I'm pronouncing it right, Stestuation there saying Isak converts a 5-year contract. FSG isn't about to make a judgment after 10 games. I completely agree with that. The fullbacks are more of an issue than anything else, and they weren't that expensive. Fullback's a major concern at the moment, isn't it? Milos Kerkez, he was terrible in this. They don't seem to be playing him a system. You kind of wonder why they did buy him at the moment if this is how they're going to use him, because there's others who are better profiled, in Cape and others being obvious ones. It just seems bizarre, doesn't it? The way he's being utilised and magnifying his weaknesses, but he's not doing much to help himself. And then people will say, oh, bring Robbo back in. But we also know over the last few years, how many times has Robbo been at the scene of the crime? Yeah, a legend, a world-class fullback in his day. That day's not here anymore, is it? He's in the last year of his contract for a reason. And Liverpool aren't going to renew it for a reason. So you've got massive issues at a left-back. A right-back, you have so many questions about Conor Bradley. I mean, he won none of his duels the other day. Gets yellow cards, doesn't really seem to be contributing much at all, does he? Defensively, or so many questions there. Jeremy Frimpong, another hamstring injuries. The fullbacks are a massive area of concern, coupled with the fact that a fullback, unless you put Dominic Szoboszlai there, you can't progress the ball, it seems. I mean, the only way it seemed to happen against Brentford was quite often Curtis or Szoboszlai to drop in between the centre-back and the full-back, didn't they, as well? Fullbacks, as a few of you are saying, I think, are massive concerns there. And you do ask questions, as Nicky says there, the shirt seems too heavy for Milos, but even just the profile at the moment, again, just another question to mount up. And the final bit of this, ladies and gents, was it's always right just to see what some of our AI writers are contributing on Anfield Index, their takes, to see whether you agree with them or whether you don't, because I see a mixed feedback online, but it's always worth bringing it into the discussion, isn't it? So Eddie Gibbo's been doing quite a lot of writings, going down well. So just a little bit from his article recently where he said, every team hits turbulence. What matters is whether you hold the controls or let the wind take you. Right now, Liverpool leaning the guts, hoping something clicks. This is the key bit for me. The fix is simpler than it looks. Stop tweaking, pick a system that protects the defence, give your creators a platform, and demand everyone does the work on and off the ball and stick to it. Thoughts on that? I agree with quite a lot of that. I've got to be honest, that do stop tweaking. I mean, we saw a sort of 4-4-2 without Salah. It started as a 4-4-2 without Brentford, but mixing and matching, chopping and changing, putting people, different people in the double pivot. You're seeing too much wild changes for me, as I think Eddie's alluding to there. So that's absolutely important as well. At the same time, we've got to have defensive solidity. So we've got to go to a system that protects the defence. We cannot be as open we are. We are hemorrhaging goals. So we've got to look at that. How can we protect the defence as best as possible? And that might be sacrificing a little bit on the attacking side, but it will all start from defensive stability. Give your creators a platform in the right areas. And I agree with Eddie on this. Demand everyone does the work. I don't think we can afford at the moment to carry passengers when we talk about pressing what's needed. Everyone needs to do work for the team. We can't have scenarios where you're saying, well, this player's, and that is a direct criticism of Mo Salah, but that trade-off is not working at the moment, is it? Yeah, I'm struggling. I love different takes. I love different fan insights to say that's why we're doing this show. But there's so much I'm struggling to argue against at the moment. Other AI contributed as well. I know Greg wrote a long and impassioned article recently and the other day, and as he said in this one, Liverpool right now feels like a team completely unsure of what it wants to be. Agreed. The results are bad enough, but the performances are worse. I agree with that. There's no control, no rhythm, and very little belief in what we're doing. I agree with that too. And sometimes I think the players look a little bit lost of what they're being asked to do. Kirkes being a case in point. The hardest thing to watch is the hesitation. Players are waiting for someone else to take responsibility. It looks like a team paralysed by confusion. Now, I've said it to Greg's face, so I'm not saying it behind his back. I agree with 90% of that. When I would disagree with, say, players are waiting for someone else to take responsibility, I think there is a few who are stepping up at the moment. I think you've got to analyse fairly both ways. You've got to go, oh, shit, because that's not analysis. Dominic Szoboszlai is stepping up big time at this moment, whether he's being asked to play right back, in the double pivot, in the 10, all places he's played so far this season, he's stepping up big time and making big contributions every game. And in fact, if not much of a vote, but if you were to stop the season now, he's our player of the year so far, isn't he? Hands down, no contest. So I think he deserves a shout. The other thing from Brentford in the last few games, I think Curtis Jones has been really good. Genuinely, you saw that, he went down with his groin injury. You again, why does this happen to Curtis Jones? Every time he gets into a bit of rhythm, a bit of something happens, an injury, isn't it? And almost a reset start again. He can never just get that run. But I would argue that he's been one that's been really good. The one thing I'm struggling at, and I'll take all suggestions and all thoughts on this, the goalkeeper. I've seen a lot of people defend the goalkeeper, and this is not attacking Marmadashvili. He makes some great saves, like the longer shots or outside the box, really, because he got massive arms and claws there. But it's one-on-one, and it's unfair to put him against Alisson and that barometer. It's a harsh marking curve. It's almost unfair. But the one-on-ones he's had so far, I thought he should have done better against Mbuemo. And I'm not quite sure what he even does when Sharda goes through. He kind of just collapses a little bit, doesn't he? But he doesn't quite stand up, make himself big, things you expected from him. So, he's young and he's learning, but there is just a bit of a question mark there as well for me around Marmadashvili and his one-on-ones. Dear Christ, people, there is, again, more questions than answers. And what a week it's set to be. As, going back to the start of the show, Crystal Palace on Wednesday night, Villa under the lights, two home games is great. But Villa have won 4 in a row. We've lost 4 in a row. Crystal Palace are a physical team. What side will we even play in the Carabao? There just feels like across the board, there are more questions than answers at the moment. And Arne Slot of Liverpool have got to find them, and they've got to find them quick. But listen, as we're coming to the end, I'm not going to lie, I've massively enjoyed doing this show. I've loved bringing up some of the brilliant takes online, on Twitter, where, social media, wherever they are, giving that insight. I've loved actually looking at certain the analytical bits and stuff that you think makes sense. I've loved the comments that have come in and people actually sharing their views in a logical ways. You'll always get, the odd one shouting at the moon, shouting at the clouds, as they say. But, hey, we're all Reds, aren't we? We've all got different opinions. So if you've been watching on YouTube that way, thank you for all your takes. Thank you for all the comments. Probably leave it with the last one for Tony Steele. I know he's a regular watcher as well, saying Slot is killing us with his constant system changing. Every game is a different system and lineup. Even when all the players are fit, he's confusing the players. Whether it's fans, whether it's been journalists, whether it's been you guys in the chat panel listening, I think everyone's the same ilk. Pick a system, think of what works best, and stick to it. Because if we're going to build patterns of play, relationships, that's what's going to work better than anything. Could well be a long few weeks ahead before this international break, eh? We will see what happens. If you've been listening, appreciate it. If you've been throwing your comments in, appreciate it as well. On Monday, the 27th of October, that was the first fan focus for Anfield Index.